Okay, so we're reading from Bhagavad Gita chapter 8, and so far I think last week we did verse 15, right? Uh, let's go to that verse. Yamamupetya punarjanma dukkhalayam ashashvatam napnuvanti mahatmana samsiddhim paramamgata. So Krishna explains that one who attains his mam upatya, his destination, he does not come back to this place which he refers as dukkhalayam ashashvatam. So this is the place, or the material world is Krishna is referring as place of miseries, dukkhalayam, and it is also temporary because it is being created and annihilated again and again. It is going through the three steps: Srishti, Sthiti, Pralaya. So Srishti means creation, Sthiti means sustenance or maintained, and Pralaya after some time, and then it is again created, or eventually we will read Bhutva Bhutva Praliyate, that it's going through manifestation and unmanifestation again and again. So this is also, that's why it is also called temporary. But one who attains Krishna Loka, or attains the Vaikuntha planet, then he does not have to come back to this material world, and that is the ultimate destination he can get to. Samsiddhim paramam gataha. So here actually we are again reading the destination of the person who is thinking of Krishna at the time of leaving this body. And then to answering that, he is giving more details: what happens to person who thinks of Krishna, what happens to person who cannot think of Krishna or does not think of Krishna, and then how one can think of Krishna. Then he gives like the yoga process first, how a yogi can think of him by chanting the sacred syllable Om and thinking of him, not only chanting Om, but thinking of Krishna. And then in continuation, he said that one who attains me, for him, he doesn't have to come back to this place of miseries, which is temporary. So let's read the next verse today. So all these verses are very beautiful and then very deep. Prabhupada refers to this so many times in his lectures. So let's recite the verse. Abrahma bhuvana loka
Abrahma bhuvana loka
punaravartino Arjuna
punaravartino Arjuna
mamupetya tu kaunteya
mamupetya tu kaunteya
punarjanmana vidyate
punarjanma na vidyate
abrahma bhuvana loka
Abrahma bhuvana loka
punaravartino Arjuna
punaravartino Arjuna
mamupetya tu kaunteya
mamupetya tu kaunteya
punarjanmana vidyate.
punarjanma na vidyate.
We can take a couple of recitations. Let's start with Madhu Prabhu. You want to read?
Yeah. Abrahma bhuvana loka
Abrahma bhuvana loka
punaravartino Arjuna
punaravartino Arjuna
mamupetya tu kaunteya
mamupetya tu kaunteya
punarjanmana vidyate.
punarjanma na vidyate.
About Chandrakant Prabhu.
Abrahma bhuvana loka
Abrahma bhuvana loka
punaravartino Arjuna mamupetya tu kaunteya
mamupetya tu kaunteya
punarjanma na vidyate.
punarjanmana vidyate.
Thank you, Chandrakant Prabhu. So, word for word meaning: A Brahma Bhuvanat means up to the Brahma Loka planet. Loka means the planetary systems. Punaha means again. Avartinaha means returning. Arjuna means O Arjun. Mam means unto me, that is unto Krishna. Upetya means arriving. Tu means but. Kaunteya means O son of Kunti. Punaha Janma means rebirth. Na means never. Vidyate means takes place. Translation: from the highest planet in the material world down to the lowest, all are places of misery, wherein repeated birth and death takes place. But one who attains to my abode, O son of Kunti, never takes birth again. Mamupetya. So this Mamupetya word we read in the previous verse also, Mamupetya tu Kaunteya. Dukkhalayam ashashvatam. So that's what he said. Mam upetya punarjanma. So Mam upetya, one who comes to me, he's saying that he's repeating the same thing, but here in today's verse, Abrahma Bhuvanaloka, he's giving little more description of that Dukkhalayam ashashvatam, that temporary world. So this material universe, he's saying that Abrahma Bhuvanaloka, there are 14 planetary systems, and the topmost is Brahmaloka, or also called as Satyaloka, and then there are 7 upper and 7 lower planetary systems, or they are also divided sometimes into 3, upper, middle and lower. That's why this is also sometimes called as Trailokya or Chauda Bhuvana. Chauda Bhuvan means 14 different planetary systems, or upper and middle, so depending on the context. So here he is giving Lord Krishna is saying that even from the top most planetary systems, that Brahmaloka, to the lower planetary systems, everywhere, wherever you get birth, you may get some kind of happiness or material kind of pleasure in there, but there is always punaravartino, there is cycle of birth and death. You keep going and coming back and going and coming back again and again into this material world. But Mamupetya tu Kaunteya, but one who attains me, Punarjanma na vidyate. He doesn't have to come back in this material world again. He doesn't have to take birth or get material body again in this world. Okay, so let's read the purport, short purport, and then we can discuss a little bit more about the 14 planetary systems and how the soul travels in these planets. So, Rajesh Prabhu, you want to read the purport?
Yeah. All kinds of yogis, karma, jnana, hatha, etc., eventually have to attain devotional perfection in bhakti yoga or Krishna consciousness before they can go to Krishna's transcendental abode and never return. Those who attain the highest material planets, the planets of the demigods, are again subjected to repeated birth and death. As persons on earth are elevated to higher planets, people on higher planets such as Brahmaloka, Chandraloka, and Indraloka fall down to earth. The practice of sacrifice called
Panchagni Vidya.
Panchagni Vidya, recommended in the Chandogya Upanishad, enables one to achieve Brahmaloka. But if on Brahmaloka one does not cultivate Krishna consciousness, then he must return to earth. Those who progress in Krishna consciousness on the higher planets are gradually elevated to higher and higher planets, and at the time of universal devastation are transferred to the eternal spiritual kingdom. Baladeva Vidyabhushan, in his commentary on BhagavadGita, quotes this verse. ब्रह्मणा सहाते सर्वे संप्राप्ते प्रतिशंकरे परस्यांते कृतात्मनः प्रविशान्ति परमं पादम. Where there is devastation of this material universe, Brahma and his devotees who are constantly engaged in Krishna consciousness are all transferred to the spiritual universe and to specific spiritual planets according to their desires.
Thank you very much, Rajesh Guru. So some points here then. So all kinds of yogis. So there are different yoga processes: karma yoga, jnana yoga, hatha yoga, ashtanga yoga, and all those yogis. So eventually the ultimate goal of all yogas is to come to bhakti yoga. Because otherwise, we read that bahunam janmanam ante jnanavan mam prapaddate vasudeva sarvamiti sa mahatma sudurlabha. That after many births, one who is in real knowledge, he ultimately comes to me. He surrenders to Krishna, Vasudeva. And he understands that Vasudeva, Krishna, is everything. He is the source of everything. Just like we read in Brahma Samhita, Brahmaji also says, Sarva Karana Karanam. He is the cause of all causes. So that can be attained only by Bhakti Yoga or Krishna conscious process. And without that, one cannot go to Krishna's transcendental abode or the spiritual planetary system called Vaikuntha planetary systems. He cannot return. And once he returns, then he doesn't have to come back again. And those who attain the highest material planets, so mostly in many religious sects, what we know of, generally their goal is to go to Swarga. Everywhere, even in the Christianity, they say that, oh, heaven and hell, that if you do pious activities, you will go to heaven. And if you do sinful activities, you'll go to hell. Same thing about Jannat and Jahannam. So, if you follow Allah's word, then you will go to Jannat. And then if you don't follow, then you will go to Jahannam. Or same thing in the Hindu scripture or Hindu understanding also, they say Swarga Loka and Narak, Swarga and Narak. So our understanding that those, and Swarga is considered as higher planetary system, and that is existing actually. It is, we'll see about the 14 planetary systems, but these higher planetary systems, they are actually, let's go to the planetary systems. I was looking at that, and here in the second canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, when it is the Shukadeva Goswami describing the Viratarup or Vishwarup, he refers to the planetary systems as being the limbs of the Viratarup or Virata Purusha of Krishna, that form of Krishna. So this is referred in multiple places in Bhagavatam, but we'll just read one here. So here he says, actually, you know what? Why don't Chandrakant Prabhu, you read these verses from 37 onwards?
Mhm. The Brahmanas represent his mouth, the Kshatriyas his arms, the Vaishyas his thighs, and the Shudras are born of his legs. The lower planetary systems, up to the limit of the earthly stratum, are said to be situated in his legs. The middle planetary systems, beginning from Bhuvarloka, are situated in his navel, and the still higher planetary systems, occupied by the demigods and highly cultured sages and saints, are situated in the chest of the Supreme Lord. From the forefront of the chest up to the neck of the universal form of the Lord are situated the planetary systems named Janaloka and Tapaloka, whereas Satyaloka, the topmost planetary system, is situated on the head of the form. The spiritual planets, however, are eternal. My dear son Narada, know from me that there are 7 lower planetary systems out of the total 14. The first planetary system, known as Atala, is situated on the waist. The second Vitala is situated on the thighs. The third Sutala on the knees, and the fourth Talatal on the shanks. The fifth Mahatal on the ankles. The sixth Rasatal on the upper portion of the feet, and the seventh Patala on the soles of the feet. Thus, the Virat form of the Lord is full of the planetary system. Others may divide the whole planetary system into three divisions, namely the lower planetary systems on the legs up to the earth, the middle planetary system on the navel, and the upper planetary system, Swaraloka, from the chest to the head of the Supreme Personality.
Thank you, Prabhu. So this is Brahmaji explaining to Narada Muni. So he gives actually, this was additional verse we read, that Brahmanas represent his mouth, Kshatriyas, arms, Vaishyas. So all the four Varnas, how they are divided. And that's why when we want to feed something, we always give Brahman Bhojan, because Brahmanas represent his mouth, the real Brahmanas. So that's why always there is no mention in anywhere in the scripture that one should feed Daridra. It is always, if we want to grow or spiritually, it is always Brahman Bhojan. So Brahmana and fire are considered mouth of Vishnu, and that's why it is always given to Brahmana. So coming back to the planetary systems now. So the lower planetary systems limit to Earth. So earthly planetary system is considered as middle. Above Earth, there is Swargaloka, Bhuvar Loka, Swargaloka, Janaloka, Tapaloka, Maharloka, and Satyaloka, or also called Satyaloka is also called as Brahmaloka. Brahmaloka is the topmost planetary system. And the lower seven, as given here as Atal, Vital, Sutal, Talatal, Rasatal, Mahatal, and Patal. So these are the lower planetary systems, 7. So coming back to today's verse is, everybody thinks that one wants to go to Swargaloka or Swarga. Swarga means literally where there is more opulence, more pious people live there, devatas live there. And that's true. It is given in our scriptures, in different scriptures. And we read from the Srimad Bhagavatam also. So that's the destination. So is it true? So that is true, yes. But what Krishna is saying here, that Brahma Bhuvana Loka, even you go up to the Brahma Loka, that is the topmost planetary system, or even you go to Narak, Punaravartino Arjuna. Hey Arjuna, you will have to be bound by this cycle of birth and death. There is no exit from this cycle of birth and death or this samsara. So going to Swarga Loka is also not the right desire, because even if we go to Swarga Loka, eventually we fall down and we keep rotating around these planetary systems. So as a person on earth elevated to higher planets, people on higher planets such as Brahma Loka, Chandra Loka, Indra Loka, they fall down eventually. Kshine Punne Marta Lokam Vishanti. In the 9th chapter, we'll read this verse. Tetam Bhuktva Sarva Lokam Vishalam. So that one who has accumulated a lot of pious activities, eventually they are sent to Swarga Loka or the higher planets. But what happens? Kshine Punne, when their Punya becomes Kshina, or when their pious activities quota is all over, balance is over, they again fall down to this earthly planet. Kshine Punne Martya Lokam Vishanti. In the 9th chapter, he says. So this goes on. But what he's saying in today's verse, that Mamupetya tu kaunteya punarjanma na vidyate, that one who attains me or the Vaikuntha planets, the spiritual planets, he doesn't have to come back again. He gets completely freed from all this cycle of birth and death. So that's the whole purport of today's verse actually. And the practice of sacrifice is called Panchagni Vidya, is recommended in Chandogya Upanishad. So in the Vedic literature, there are different pujas, different rituals, different kinds of processes recommended for getting to the higher planets. So if one has a desire to go to certain planet, say Chandraloka or Indraloka or Brahmaloka, or if somebody wants to go to Pitara, So then that type of worship is recommended, and people who are attracted to that, they follow that process and do that. There are lots of rules and regulations that they have to follow, and they perform that, and they can go to that specific planet. But again, as we said, they are still part of this material world. They are not free from the material miseries, or they are still part of this dukkhalayam, even the Brahmaloka planet. So everything is part of this material universe. But and even if one goes to the highest planet, to the Brahmaloka, if one does not cultivate Krishna consciousness or bhakti for Krishna, he must return to earth or the lower planetary systems. But those who progress on Krishna consciousness on higher planet systems, so if somebody has progressed in higher planetary systems and they are on the Brahmaloka, in the Bhagavatam it is said that at the time of the final pralaya or final annihilation, they all go back to Vaikuntha planets with the Brahma. And that's what Baldev Vidyabhushan, Prabhupada quotes Baldev Vidyabhushan, who is one of the acharyas in the Gaudiya Vaishnava Sampradaya. In his Bhagavad Gita commentary, he comments that Brahmana saha te sarve. Brahmana means with Brahma saha te sarve. All those who are engaged in Krishna consciousness and are elevated already to Brahma Loka, samprapte prati sanchare. Samprapte means they, at the time of death, samprapte. Prati samchare, they go to where? Parasyante kritatmanaha pravishanti parampadam. Parampadam, the supreme pada. Pada means destination. Pravishanti, they enter into. They enter into that supreme destination, that is the Vaikuntha planets. They don't have to come back again. So we can probably check the annihilation. So different annihilations what are explained. So there are pralayas, different pralayas. We can actually check it and find the pralayas. 4 types of annihilations. So these 4 types of annihilations in the 12th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam are given as Naimittika, Prakritika, Nitya and Atyantika. So Naimittika Prakrutiko, Nitya Atyantiko Laya, Samstetika Vibhi Proktam, Chaturdasya Subhavata. These are the 4 annihilations or pralaya that is mentioned. So Naimittika, we can understand what these are. So there are 4 types of cosmic annihilations: occasional, elemental, continuous, and ultimate. Occasional, and we'll see in one of the other chapters in the beginning, in the summary, there is a separate chapter in Srimad Bhagavatam about all the pralayas, but these are the names: Nitya, Naimittika, Atyantika, and Prakritika, all of which are affected by the inherent potency of the Supreme Lord. So Supreme Lord is causing all these pralayas, and that's why this is all manifesting and unmanifesting again. And the learned scholars have designated the topics, these topics of dissolution. And then what are these annihilations? So in the 4th chapter of the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is, okay, let's go to the 12th canto, 4th chapter, the 4 categories of universal annihilation. So let's read, this is a short summary, so we'll not read the whole chapter, but in the summary we can read what this is. So Madhu Prabhu, do you want to read this one page or the summary?
This chapter discusses the 4 kinds of annihilation: constant, occasional, material, and final, and the chanting of the holy name of Lord Hari, which is the only means of stopping the cycle of material life. 1000 cycles of 4 ages constitute 1 day of Brahma, and each day of Brahma, called Kalpa, contains within it the lifetimes of 14 Manus. The duration of Brahma's night is the same as that of his day. During his night, Brahma sleeps and the three planetary systems meet destruction. This is the naimittic or occasional annihilation. When Brahma's lifespan of 100 years is finished, there occurs the prakrit,
Prakriti.
prakrit, prakritika or total material annihilation. At that time, the seven elements of material nature, beginning with the Mahat and the entire universal egg composed of them, are destroyed. When a person achieves knowledge of the absolute, he understands factual reality. He perceives the entire created universe as separate from the absolute and therefore unreal. That is called the Atyantika or final annihilation, liberation. At every moment, time invisibly transforms the bodies of all created beings and all other manifestations of matter. This process of transformation causes the living entity to undergo the constant annihilation of birth and death. Those possessed of subtle vision state that all creatures, including Brahma himself, are always subject to generation and annihilation. Material life means subjugation to birth and death, or generation and annihilation. The only boat suitable for crossing the ocean of material existence, which is otherwise impossible to cross, is the boat of submissive hearing of the nectarian pastimes of the Supreme Personality of Godhead.
Thank you, Madhu Prabhu. So the four annihilations are, one is Nitya. So Nitya is something that is constantly happening, because with the time, our body is constantly changing. So our old body is dying and new body is created. Even in this life, actually, our old body materially is dying and then new cells are constantly created. And when we give up this body, that we call as death. So that cycle, that time is taking away everything from us all the time. That is called Nitya Pralaya. Then the next level is Brahmaji has his day, one day, actually, that we'll read in the next verse, in the 17th verse of the Bhagavad Gita. Sahasra Yuga Paryantam Aharyad Brahmano Vigo. So his one day or Kalpa is made up of 1000 Mahayugas. So one yuga is made up of all four yugas: Satya Yuga, Treta Yuga, Dwapar Yuga, and Kali Yuga. So all these four constitute one Divya Yuga or Mahayuga, or one Yuga it is also. So 1000 like this makes one Brahma's day. And at the end of each Kalpa or each day, afterwards, the same duration is his night, where he goes to sleep. So that time, when he goes to sleep, everything stops. So everything, all this material creation goes to, it is annihilated, and then that destruction is called, all the three planetary systems are annihilated. When Brahma sleeps, that is called Naimittika or occasional. So every day, after every day of Brahma, there is annihilation, that is called Naimittika, and when he wakes up again, then he starts whole creation again. And at the end of his life, which like this, he lives his own 100 years. At the end of Brahma's life, the whole universe is dissolved. Brahma leaves his body also. He is also temporary. Even though his duration of life seems very long, but his life is also temporary. So when Brahma's lifespan is of 100 years is finished, that occurs the Prakritika. The whole Prakriti or this universe is destroyed. And there are 7 different layers of this universal egg. Each layer from inside to outside, each next layer is 10 times bigger than the inner layer. So that description will, when we come to that context, we'll probably see that eventually sometime. But that whole universal egg is completely destroyed, and that annihilation is called Prakritika annihilation. So Nitya, Naimittika, and Prakritika. So Nitya is constantly, when we are going through this cycle of birth and death again and again. Naimittika is at the end of Brahma's day, and Prakritika is at the end of Brahma's life, when this whole universe is completely destroyed. And the fourth one is called Atyantika, that is the final annihilation for a living entity, when he realizes what his real identity is, and then he leaves this subtle body and gross body, everything, and he is liberated, and he gets to the Vaikuntha planet, never comes back again. So that is the final annihilation for a living entity, for a jiva or atma or soul, and that is called Atyantika annihilation. That is the final annihilation, or that is also we call as mukti from this cycle of birth and death. So just because we were discussing that, Krishna says that it doesn't matter where you go in this material planetary system, from the topmost Brahma Loka to the lowest Patal Loka, everybody, and this is true for including Brahma to the smallest worm in this world. Everybody, they have to go through the cycle of birth and death. But when one attains to the final destination, that is the Vaikuntha planets, Mam Upetya, one who comes back to me, He Kaunteya, Punarjanmada Vidyate. And that's what we just learned is called Atyantika, or the final annihilation. So I'll stop here. And there are one more verse actually I was going to think, but let's take some reflections.
You can inform clearly, right? That a person will never take a birth again and come to this Bhulok, कुठला आपला पृथ्वी.
It doesn't matter anywhere. He doesn't have to
Anywhere,
go to Brahma Lok,
right?
or Swarga Lok, or Tapalok, or Narak Lok, or Tal, all the planetary systems. Everything in this material world. He doesn't have to come back to this material universe at all.
Yeah.
But even if he goes in this material universe, even to the topmost planets, he
right.
That's the difference.
Yeah.
So when we say, oh, स्वर्गवासी झालं, स्वर्ग लोकात जरी गेला तो माणूस तरी परत येणार आहे तो.
बरोबर. That's why it said that, but one who attends to my abode, means one who comes to me never goes back. That's what Krishna is trying to insist or tell Arjuna.
Correct.
I think just on the information purpose, this looks like this look. Maybe it's explanation, probably. Some references earlier and something we may come ahead, looks like.
थांबूया इथे आपण आता. But yeah, I think next week again we'll go through the whole timeline and everything. So that's also a very interesting topic. Everything is interesting actually, but this probably might take a little bit longer, and then we'll try to understand as much as possible.